LA sucks without the Palisades. John Talks, episode 20. There, I said it. LA sucks without the Palisades. So, I'm going to break that down. And I'm also going to give you a field report on LA and a brief forecast of its future. And to do that, I need to tell you a little bit of my background that's applicable in this particular report, which is obviously, if you've been listening to me, you know that I went to West Point and I graduated with a degree in systems engineering and philosophy. Now, while I was at West Point, I underwent extensive field training from a variety of military experts. And some of the most memorable training I received in between my sophomore and junior year as a infantry squad leader, I was trained by Green Berets, Special Forces. Got to spend a week with them in the woods, getting basically one-on-one tutoring in fieldcraft. And amongst those things are learning how to scout. Scouting and reconnaissance are really the bedrocks of any good military operation, certainly any good tactical operation, which means tactical meaning like anything you're doing, person to person, like anybody, people or planes or ships that are actually in the action. And so reconnaissance and scouting are vital, and intelligence is included in scouting. In fact, intelligence is a form of scouting. So I was extensively trained by special forces in on foot scouting and intelligence gathering, reconnaissance. That was hammered in repeatedly at West Point. It's, probably the most important thing you do on a military operation is prior to the operation you do what they call a leader's recon. And a leader's recon is a leader's reconnaissance where the leadership gets as close as possible to the area of action, or whatever they're going to call it for that operation, as possible to get eyes on. And then they also study up with maps and overlays and whatever relevant data they can get their hands on. But the ultimate is always to be able to get eyes on in person before you engage in the battle. So I had that training at West Point, and then when I went to flight school, there are a few phases of flight school, and you switch aircraft, and you switch airframes rather, between some of them. And the second phase is the tactical flying phase, where I flew OH-58 Kiowa Scouts, and they taught us to do scouting from the air, because when you're in the air, that's a great place to scout. So no matter what type of airframe you get put into, like I ended up in Blackhawks, but it doesn't matter if you're in Blackhawks, Chinooks, Apaches, Kiowa, it doesn't matter. One of your secondary duties, like a passive duty that you're expected to do at all times, is scout, which is also a form of reconnaissance. So I had that training, and then I spent 7 years in the Army and flying and working on war staff, and so I did a ton of scouting and obviously analysis and strategy and all sorts of other things. So I got to a point where, especially after working for the general, that if I looked in an area and I started to envision an operation, I could mentally compute all of the logistics and the paths and the avenues and the air routes and all the different full spectrum pieces that come into play for an operation based on the inventory we had, based on the topography I was seeing, based on meteorological forecasts, based on all of the logistical aspects, whether it's like supply, material, finances, State Department. There's all these factors in the dimension. When you're like really assessing a dimension properly, there are many relevant factors. Fast forward to LA, some like 25 years later. I've been a seasoned veteran artist for a long time. I've been working with the public for a long time. So my insights have grown, and what I can do in terms of data collection is like off the charts. And so when I've been scouting LA since like '05, living in Santa Clarita, but in earnest in 2021, when I moved down here, I'm on Miracle Mile, which is also next to Beverly Hills. I mean, when I was walking around my walk this morning, I heard the Beverly Hills emergency broadcasting system on my neighborhood speakers. So I'm pretty much in Beverly Hills as well. And so when I got down here a few years ago, I came here without a car. I came with a one wheel, which is like it's like a snowboard with a go-kart wheel. And it has a range of about 20 miles and it goes about 20 miles an hour. And I spent the first like a minimum maybe like 2.5 years just on the one wheel in the heart of central West Los Angeles, like basically San Vicente and Wilshire. And I covered every street between the 101 and the 405 on that thing, and the Hollywood Hills, and a bunch of Brentwood and Bel Air. Oh, and every street, basically every street on the west side, I one wheeled. No exaggeration. Hollywood, Santa Monica, Brentwood, Venice, Marina del Rey, Playa, Culver City, Mid City, Hollywood, Los Feliz, Atwater Village, Ton of the Valley, all in the one wheel. Now, a lot of the time I was wearing the chicken suit, which I'm famous for. Now, whether I was like doing it just on my own or in the chicken suit, I was always scouting. Can't help but do it. It's just who I am. And so I gathered a lot of data on the one wheel. Then I switched to an e-scooter, continued, still doing it. Then last October, so it's been like 7 months, I started driving Uber, and that put me onto all the roads in LA, everywhere, covering everything from the Valley all the way to Long Beach. And then the fires hit, took a month off, switched over to Lyft, been driving Lyft for the last 3 months, and post-fire, but still hit like all the streets. And Lyft goes to different areas. Lyft is a lower socioeconomic service. So like Uber was not taking me into South Central that much, but like Lyft does, and Uber wasn't going into like East LA or parts of downtown like Lyft does. So I've gotten this like very full spectrum data sampling from all of my exploits. The whole time I've been keeping in mind scouting and doing all the systems engineering, and I can't even tell you like all the people I've been driving. I mean, all the different walks of life, which completes the picture. I mean, even like one of the guys was he was the civil engineer in charge of like the water structure for LA. Man, we had a lengthy conversation about the water infrastructure, like all the pipes and where the control room is and how do what do they do, and the whole shebang. And I've had a lot of conversations like that with a lot of people that, they were all in the moment because it's completely random because I can't control who I'm picking up, and, it's a whole random thing. But they ended up creating a mosaic of information and intelligence that's pretty useful. So what I can tell you is that LA sucks without the Palisades. Like, it's just because it's not just the Palisades. Like, LA was already hurting before the fires hit. Okay, so the fires hit and we lose an entire city. You don't lose an entire city in war. And I'm not going to get too into the politics on this one because this is more just like systems and information analysis more than political analysis. But suffice to say, the politics here are corrupt, and that's been the case ever since the place was founded, and that's why Chinatown is such a classic movie, because it's all about LA just has corrupt, not just politics, but corrupt elites, and so that hasn't changed much. But the Palisades going down, like you don't lose a city in a war like we did, okay? So just off the bat, the shock to the system of the city is immense. Now, the Palisades, for those of you who aren't from LA, it sits to the west of Brentwood, and it's west of Santa Monica, and it's in between Brentwood and Santa Monica and Malibu, and it occupies a place on the coast. It's like a pretty strategic portion. And when the Palisades went down, it cut Malibu off of the rest of LA. Okay, so it wasn't just that we lost the Palisades, like we lost a lot of Malibu. Now, the Malibu residents are allowed to use PCH and they're allowed to go around to the 101, which is on the north, but it's like completely disrupted the flow. Completely. And the PCH is closed to like normal traffic, which is crazy. And Sunset Boulevard now ends in Brentwood, whereas Sunset used to take you all the way to the beach, all the way to PCH. So not only is it off the bat, the Palisades has displaced a tremendous amount of really cool people who are also really rich people and some of LA's version of aristocrats. So that's displaced like an entire rich colony, which is crazy. And not everybody in there is rich, but most of the people are quite wealthy. And the wealthy people that are in there are like, a lot of them are rich and famous. Okay. And if you don't live in an area that has rich and famous people, when a person is rich and famous, it's way different than if a person's just rich. Like a rich person can be whatever. They may not be a very dynamic person. They may not move their money around. They may not whatever. But a rich and famous person is particularly powerful because they have power over material realm, and then they also have influence through their personality or their craft, like whatever it is, and it makes them extraordinarily powerful. We had a pretty amazing collection of rich and powerful people, rich and famous people in the Palisades, and they all got displaced overnight, which is crazy. Because a lot of those people are like basically kings and queens who a tremendous amount of life-changing information, be it, through their wisdom or their money or their personality or whatever, has been completely like messed with basically. And a lot of them just left. Okay. Let's get that out of this. A lot of them like went to their second home, and a lot of them went to the local luxury hotels. To put a metric on it, I talked to people, and like all the rooms at the Four Seasons were immediately booked, and all the rooms at the Beverly Hills Hotel were immediately booked. And right now, a room for a night at the Beverly Hills Hotel is going for $1,350, which is crazy. And it's because all the rich people got displaced into there. I also have a couple friends who work West LA real estate, and they have for a long time. And they told me that it was 50-50 shot on whether those people were going to stay or not in the Palisades. Even when you get to the fact that they say it's going to take 1 to 3 years to rebuild in there. Okay, and now we're almost 6 months out already, and if somebody rebuilds a house in there in the next 6 months, it will be like, let's just put it this way, that's not going to happen. So looking more like I would say more to like the 3 to 5 year side. And there's a whole bunch of stuff that goes into that. There's a whole bunch of stuff because they're going to try to cut red tape and do this, but like I already found out that they have to redo the entire sewers in there. Right. And they haven't even checked out all the utilities. And when I tell you the rest of what's going on in LA, you'll see why. If LA were just under normal circumstances, it would still be a very tall order with like when you see how corrupt the politicians are and when you see how slow the pace of infrastructure work is here, which is normal for a big city, but we're not fast. When you combine the corruption with the pace of infrastructure building, and you realize that they have to do a sewer system, and Lord knows, like, if they're gonna, like, they're probably gonna have to like bury the power lines and do like real infrastructure work. Just doing that, like they have to do that before they let a lot of these houses start to come back in and plug into the system. So the idea that they're gonna get these public utilities basically rebuilt in like 6 to 12 months. I don't think you can find any expert who has any confidence in the idea that Los Angeles is going to like get the Palisades, mass utilities up and running how it needs to for like full scale rebuilding to occur within 6 to 12 months. I mean, even if they got like the Army Corps of Engineers in there working, full tilt, I mean that might get them there in 6 to 12 months. Basically, if they outsourced it to the federal government, basically to the Army, But is LA capable itself of doing it? I mean, it hasn't demonstrated any competency even close enough to suggest any confidence in that prediction. So that's before you even get past all the other stuff, when all the political hand wringing and people wanting to get back into their old neighborhoods. And it's way before any of that. Okay, so you're already getting a sense of how crazy slow this problem is. So that's just the Palisades. So that's just the fact that all these, rich aristocrats have been displaced, and just in terms of like the traffic patterns, it's already maxed out LA's traffic patterns, just because of the hole and the disruption it makes, which is crazy. Because of the other stuff coming up, which I'll get to. Now, the other thing is that since these are super powerful, rich people, the GDP of LA itself has been severely affected. And this is during a time when Hollywood's falling apart and the studios haven't brought the money back. Like, since the strikes, they signed contracts, but all of the reports are from industry people that the agreed upon monies have not been released into the system, and we're going on like a long time now. So there's some type of like corporate media studio collusion occurring. Either that or they just all got cold feet all at the same time at the exact same rate. So, which is pretty crazy, because in any market, if six of the major people don't want to buy a thing, then the seventh guy is like, great, it's my lucky day, I get to buy it cheap. But in this particular case, like, nobody's like opening up their purse strings, which is pretty nutty given the fact that the movies are still highly profitable. Like, when a good movie comes out, you can make billions of dollars, and then, with the creative financing you can do off of that, it's still worth it for these studios to take big swings at big movies, and they're not doing it. Which is pretty nuts. So a lot of those people that live in the Palisades are involved in that industry. So there's a double whammy going on. Like, the GDP is just taking massive, massive hits. And it's making it like really not tourist friendly, because the traffic patterns are right now, they're a nightmare. Now, here's the crazy thing is, so that's the case with just the Palisades, and that doesn't even include Altadena. And Altadena's we lost them, and that's all screwed up too. And that demo is, it's a proud black community that emerged organically, so you can't replace that, which is, awful. And and honestly, it's too bad they didn't do more promotion of that, what occurred there in Altadena prior to the fires, because it's pretty heartwarming. Anyway, so that's okay. So that's Palisades, right? And that's like not even the political analysis too, because the Palisades is super powerful left wing enclave in terms of the American political spectrum, and so basically, like, it's a Democrats' power base, and it got completely destroyed. So take that for what it's worth. And wherever they reassemble, it's not going to be, they won't have the same synergy. So that's lost. Now, in terms of like the traffic patterns, and this is what I'm saying in terms of just the pure systems and infrastructure of what's occurring in LA here in the next few years. So that's the situation with the Palisades. And I think you get an idea of how much that disrupts the traffic flow of LA and the money flow of LA and the power flow of LA. So here's a few more traffic-related things for the grid that are coming up in the next few years. So we're hosting the World Cup, or some of the World Cup, in 26. That's going to be a big deal. So, and the rebuilding the Palisades, that's a big deal. They're still working on the subway that's going down Wilshire. And right now they're on like Beverly Hills, Santa Monica, or Beverly Hills, Century City, all the way to the VA in Sepulveda. And it's a mess. So Wilshire is super tore up, which is like not great. That's not set to conclude anytime soon. Also, down here in the middle of Hollywood on Fairfax, at the CBS studios, they got this plan approved for the TV center, which looks great because it looks like Rockefeller Center does in New York City, where it's a tall skyscraper. I mean, it's not as tall as Rockefeller. It's like, I forget, it's like 20 stories or something. It's big, and it's gonna be a media tower. It's TV studios and whatever in there. But when they brought it to be voted upon, they had to bring a traffic report, and the traffic report said that there's basically going to be like a 2-mile gridlock radius around the damn thing for like 5 to 10 years, because they have to do like heavy duty, big time building construction in there. It's going to be pretty much a nightmare. It's right next to the Grove. So that's going to go on probably like half a decade, and probably more, to be honest. Okay. So that's in the middle of Hollywood, right? And that's going to disrupt the traffic pattern like crazy. And then, I mean, it's just crazy how much stuff's just going on. And then that's on top of the fact that we have the Olympics coming in, and we have to do a ton of prep for the Olympics. I mean, they're talking about building a brand new hotel, Universal City, and that's getting political already. The labor workers are all already like saying that they're going to strike to get a $30 minimum wage for that, and whatever. LA's out of control anyway, so they might as well ask for $50 an hour at this point. So the Olympic preps are going to be put on top of all that. Now so that's already an absolute ridiculous amount of confusion for a city, even though it's a metropolis and it's huge. That's a tremendous amount of stuff to put in a city. If the city was being well ran, that would be a lot. If you were like, yeah, our mayor's great, our city council's great, the county's great, the county commission's great, like the governor's great. None of that's true in our case. Like, we basically have illegitimate governance, like on every level. They just steal money, they lie, they can't get voted out of office. Things just get worse. There's no accountability. They stand up for all the wrong issues. They don't, like, we voted for a bullet train in 2008 and like laid out billions of dollars, and like there hasn't been a single mile of rail laid, but there's been a lot of money expended. We don't know where. They spent like $42 billion on homeless, but LA has over 100,000 homeless people, and we have for a long time. That's crazy. And nobody knows where the money went, okay? Those are just like two of the things, and they're massive things, but those are just like two of the things that this government has proven how incompetent they are, to put it mildly. I mean, you can't put it past the fact that they're just malevolent. Yeah, so yesterday they announced all their budget issues, okay? And so basically they don't have any money, which is a pretty big deal. They had a huge budget deficit, and yesterday Newsom, he was saying that he's going to have to retract free health care for illegal immigrants, which is crazy in the first place, but coming out of his mouth, it means he's having to reverse course in a hardcore way, which means he really is out of money. And that's on top of the fact that there's going to be immigration raids in East LA prior to the Olympics. Like, those are coming down the pipe, and that's going to, there's just going to be a lot of chaos, because people are physically going to be moving around. People are going to be freaking out, which I get. And then the economy is just going to go bonkers, because LA relies a ton on illegal labor, like in back of the house of restaurants, labor, construction jobs. I mean, everybody knows, like, it's well documented. The undocumented are well documented. I mean, they're so well documented, they have tax ID numbers, which, by the way, Doge, they got the IRS to give them the tax ID numbers of all the illegals. So they for sure already have an operating database of for sure who's in the country illegally. See, and there you go. By the way, undocumented immigrants, that's another reason to not ever trust the fucking IRS. Because even when you thought they were being your friend, you're like, oh, here's a tax ID number. It makes you feel official. Like, in the end, they were just selling you out, buddy. Yeah, what else is... so their budget's falling apart. They don't know what they're doing. Then there's this... This is hilarious. This might even be like the craziest thing of it all. So there's an impending gasoline crisis. So it turns out that California is on what they call a gasoline island. We have to refine all of our oil in state. There's no pipeline that brings refined gasoline in. So we get all this crude oil shipped in, and we used to have like 10 refineries in state. And then because of our aggressive anti-fossil fuel policies and taxation policies and requirements at the refinery to make gas a certain way that is only made in California, and they're not even sure if it's like matters or not. Basically, we went from 10 refineries to 7 because the petroleum companies are like, yeah, you guys are a headache. We don't want to do this anymore. It's not profitable. So 3 of them got shut down. So why does it matter? Well, it turns out that 7 refineries is the least number of refineries that we can have in state to meet daily gasoline demand in California. And it turns out that whoever owns that 7th one is like balking at it now, and they want to shut it down. They don't even want to be here. And so the state of California, get this, is now considering taking over operations of that refinery. Yeah, these people who like all they do is just steal money and screw shit up, and like, you know, not to mention the fact that they ignored State Farm and all these like home insurance people. These home insurance people told the California state governor, you know, legislators for probably like 15 years, step by step, like they gave them surveys and reports of all the stuff that was wrong with the wildfire prevention. They didn't just they don't just hike rates. They tell you what you're doing wrong. And so the same state legislators that ignored the insurance people who were giving them sage advice have also been ignoring all of the advice from the petroleum industry, which I get. They're in a born industry, but they're necessary. And so they've been telling them, look, if you keep doing this, we're going to have to shut down all the refineries. And so they're at the last one that matters. So if this refinery, here's the thing, if the state decides to take it over, forget the fact that it's just like an obvious socialist, communist takeover. The more important thing is that it'll be taken over by idiots. So it doesn't make a difference. It's not like they know how to run a friggin' oil refinery. So if they take it on, it's just going to be some kind of like ridiculous dystopian black comedy, which I'm here to see that. I mean, I'm fine with it, but it's going to have real world consequences. And if that 7th refinery shuts down, then not basically, but literally overnight, California's gas is going to go from like $5 a gallon to like $100 a gallon. Like that's real. That could literally happen like any day soon. Like it could happen. Like nobody's like the refineries are not there. I don't know if you know this, but petroleum companies are not charities. And so they're not running these refineries out of the goodness of their heart, and they're sick of doing business in California. And it's not just the 7th one that wants to go. There's like actually like 3 other ones that actually do want to shut down, and they're just waiting to see if that first one that really wants to shut down shuts down, because they've made it clear that if that happens, they also may go too, because they're just sick of it. So if that happens, California could have an unprecedented gasoline apocalypse that could unfold over the course of like just a very short period of time. And if that happens, California's going to have to resort to shipping in on super tankers refined gasoline, which is considered the ecologically worst option. So by California's mismanaged environmental policies, we may result in having the most dangerous and worst form of gasoline delivery available because they just fucked it all up so bad. And that seems inevitable unless there's direct intervention to prevent it. You know, it looks like that's where we're going to go, is that there's going to be a gasoline apocalypse, which, you know, it's not that crazy when you realize these are the same politicians who are making Hollywood leave Los Angeles. like on top of the fact that they already ran SpaceX and Tesla out of California, like the 2 of the most desirable industries you could possibly imagine. Like, yeah, who would want the world's most cutting edge space program, and then like the world's best selling ecological car, you know, built here, and they were born here. And, you know, So that's who they are. So they're just running everything out of town. And so yeah, like when everything's up and running, like all these construction projects and it's like inevitable gridlock. Like at some point in 2026, when everything's full bore, rebuilding the Palisades, metro construction, TV center construction, World Cup prep and hosting, Olympic prep, no money in the coffers, a bunch of incompetent people on every level of government, like with their heads up their asses trying to figure out what to do. It's going to be like a 24-hour a day gridlock just in the traffic. Even if they swap out the leadership, like 24-hour a day gridlock traffic, like some serious Blade Runner shit. Like just beginning in 2026, and there's no end to it. I mean, there's going to be like a 2-year window. There's going to be a 2-year window where it's like literally unavoidable. Because there's only two real roads in the Palisades. You got Sunset and I mean, you got to go through the one, I guess, but like really there's just like Sunset. And I mean, just imagine all the construction materials that are going to have to share one or two roads when there's like, I don't even know how many housing units they can build in there, but like, I mean, thousands, right? And there's definitely going to be at least a couple skyscrapers, like apartment buildings, whatever, get built in there. So you're talking just to be able to bring all that building material in, and like Brentwood only has like 3 streets. Brentwood only has like 3 main streets. And, so Sunset is already super clogged in there. I mean, it's just going to be a nightmare. It's just going to be 24/7 gridlock. And it's essentially unavoidable. Yeah. And that's before you get to any of the other factors. Yeah. It's going to be pretty crazy. It's going to be pretty crazy. So on that level, the traffic's going to get pretty gridlocked. It's going to be pretty much unlivable, to be honest. And, economically, I mean, all the leadership's got to go. None of them are interested in California making money. Like there's no leader at any level, like city, county, or state. Like nobody's concerned with private citizens making a living. None of them are even remotely concerned. In fact, it's tough to tell what they care about. Like Karen Bass is like the definition of an empty suit, and she looks like a gremlin. And she should have resigned like the day of the wildfires, but she's an indecent person, so she stuck around. And the city council is like notoriously indecent, and the county commission is a bunch of jackals. And Newsom literally comes from a mafia family. So what do you expect from him? Like he's just like a greasy sleazeball he's worse than a used car salesman. I mean, he's just like he's like a serial killer who figured out politics. And so basically you just have a collection of just like horrendously immoral and incompetent people tap dancing to save their necks, and they're not concerned with any of this. And their budget just like went kaplooey. Because they, at the state and city levels, they're basically running a whole, federal rebate program scheme, to put it diplomatically. And I don't know if you've noticed lately, but the federal rebate, money scheme has been canceled by the feds. So, those checks issued by the company store are no longer honored by the company store. So that puts them in a bit of a bind. Anywho, the prognosis for LA it's not good. It's gonna have to go, just based on all these factors. It has to go through a metamorphosis. It just doesn't have any choice. All the factors, the synergy of the infrastructure, the synergy of the logistics, and the synergy of, the political will, and the synergy of the finances, and the real life factors are such that they can't. LA cannot continue in the model that it has for the last 100 years. That model is now over, and something necessarily new has to emerge. And not only does a new model have to emerge, but there needs to be new leadership who has their feet in the 21st century, conducting it, and leadership who actually cares what happens, because these people don't care, and they're basically just heartless, soulless, carpetbaggers. What are you gonna do? Anyhow, I hope you found this. I hope you found this a helpful report. However you analyze it yourself, and yeah, you can check up on everything I said. But I think you're gonna find that I'm telling you pretty much the truth. So do with it what you will. I hope you have fun. Thanks for listening, and take care.